Um, so I think, do we want to do a round of introductions first, just so you know who else is joining us and the reason why? Fiona, do you want to give a little bit of a background as to reason why you're here today?
Hello, my name's Fiona Ramsey. I help IIRSM on a number of things, mostly the Sentinel production. So we produce the magazine that goes out to members every 2 months, the Sentinel. And Karen, who you'll meet soon, has contributed quite a lot.
Frozen, I think Fiona's frozen.
Yeah. Fiona, I've turned your video off because we've lost your sound. That might help. No, do we want to go on to someone else?
Shall we ask Karen to introduce herself as well? Because then I think the majority of other people probably know each other, but I mean, it would be nice for Fiona and Karen to actually just get an intro as well. But so Karen?
Yeah, I can jump in and intro myself and nicely segue back to Fiona when she comes back in again. So my name's Karen Hewitt and I'm director of a company called Leaderlike. And we are specialists in health and safety engagement and influence. I joined the IIRSM probably about 6 months ago because I was getting more and more excited by the kind of work that you're doing. So I agreed, I had various conversations, agreed I'd love to get more involved as a volunteer. So I did a webinar yesterday on influencing upwards. You'll probably notice that I'm going to chair the ambassador network as well. And I volunteered to really come in and sit in this meeting to just see if and where I could help. So I was just keen to listen in today, hear the kind of things you're discussing and see if there's any capacity for me to support with the skills that I have. So really just hearing a supporting, observing capacity. But if I hear anything today that I think I could instantly provide something useful on, I'll jump in and help you out. But otherwise, just really keen to hear what kind of opportunities you are discussing.
And I think it can be very useful as well, Karen. So Fiona, we've got you back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm hoping that my Wi-Fi is a bit more stable now.
So do you want to start again then?
Sure. Oh, sorry. I don't know when you lost me.
No, we sort of got your name and not much else really.
So I mainly work with IIRSM on the Sentinel magazine, and I'm really keen to encourage people to contribute to the Sentinel. It doesn't have to be full articles. It can be thoughts. It can be things that the emerging risk leaders are working on that might be hot topics. So I'll do a little bit of a presentation in a few minutes to tell you a bit more.
And we've had quite a few people, well, a couple of people sort of here online today that have actually contributed, I think, so Robert and Azelby. So well done. So that's a move forward. Do you want an introduction to all of the people that are online, Karen and Fiona? Yes. Who wants to go first? I think on my list I've got Trevor. So Trevor, do you want to outline and give it your introduction, and then I'll just move down the list.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I've been involved in the Emerging Risk Leaders since its start. I'm a Shika manager for Power Systems who work with HV Electrical, and I was part of the podcast, Emerging Risk Leaders podcast for podcast that we did last year. So looking to build on that and obviously stay involved with the group.
Yeah, and we've just Julie and I have just been discussing that, so see if we can get you some help.
Yes, yeah.
Like money.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so yeah, Julie and I are going to pick that up and
yeah, I spoke to Sabrina about maybe some sponsorship stuff, but I've not. I haven't got time to speak to her this week about it. Okay. I was hoping to speak at the president's address, but I was unable to attend in the end just for
Yeah.
personal reasons. But yeah, where we can move forward about developing on top of that, I'm keen to continue. So
Okay, well, see how you get on with Sabrina, and then you know, Julie and I will have a chat about what else.
Perfect.
Okay, Holly.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Holly. I'm the EHS advisor at a company called Mira GTX. We're a gene therapy company based in London and Shannon. So we do general health and safety, but also I'm the lead on biosafety for all of the sites.
Thank you. Robert?
Hey everyone, Rohit Sharma. I'm based in Dubai. I work for ABB. I'm taking care about one of ABB vertical business in process industry for global operations, which mainly deal in the mining, metals, pulp and paper, food, beverage, data center. These all verticals. So I'm not only taking care about health and safety. Last year I took over the role as well as the sustainability, and slowly the shift is switching towards the sustainability as well, because a lot of reporting requirements are there. So we have around operations globally, ABB having 100 countries, but in my division, we have active operation in 40 countries across the globe.
So you're not doing much then, are you?
No.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Good morning, all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Brilliant. I've been a member of IIRSM for a year. I'm an engineering manager at Mira GTX alongside Holly in London. Health and safety and risk management is obviously a key component of engineering and engineering management. This is my first emerging risk leaders meeting, so I'm keen to listen today and find out what's going on. Apologies, no camera. I don't think my connection will be good enough to sustain both.
Don't worry. Thank you very much, Peter. Mohit?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Yeah. So I'm associated with IIRSM since long, and I was in India, I was chair of India IIRSM branch, ex chair, I would say. So right now I moved to Qatar, and yeah, working in the field of SEAS in oil and gas construction division in Qatar. Yeah, that's a small brief about me. And I was also previously I was the part of emerging risk leader. Trevor is there, Trevor, and we work together, and Julie also. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robert?
Hi everyone. So yeah, my name's Robert Dukes. I'm Health, Safety, Environment and Quality Manager at Norfolk Tissue Lancaster. I have the wonderful I'd say advantage or privilege of deputising for the Group Health and Safety Director. So that's just more jobs on that I get allocated to and get asked to on a day-to-day basis. I'd say it's amazing, but until they give me a pay rise, that's a little bit of a disgruntled thing there. But yeah, I did a PhD part-time. And in terms of involvement with IIRSM, I've been a member for probably about, say, 6 years, maybe, I think, maybe more. In terms of the IIRSM Emerging Risk Leaders, I've been in from the start, been involved in a few different actions there, and then we, kind of been periodically involved in some aspects of it, and then some of the other schemes have just been more of a bystander with as well. So, it's been a fantastic programme, and excited to see the latest kind of revision of it, really, and how we've picked up a bit of momentum now as well, hopefully. So hopefully we can kind of keep this going.
Thanks, Robert. And Alzabi? We can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
So my name is Alzabi. I have my own health and safety consulting business. I service a wide range of clientele and industries. I don't know how long I've been part of IIRSM, but it's been like a couple of years. And then I've been part of the Emerging Risk Leadership Network now for about 2.5 years. So yes, that's me in a nutshell.
And is there anybody else online that I've missed that I can't see? No, nobody's shouting out. Well, we're going to do today is Fiona is actually going to give us an update and sort of talk to you, as she said, first, and then we're going to move on to so looking at what we've achieved so far, you know, what more we've got to achieve, what more help people actually want, and then starting to look, I think, as Karen was saying, is what else could be done to actually support you as leaders. And then I think Julie might sort of pop in as well, and actually give some updates on the IIRSM. So if everybody's okay with that, we'll move to Fiona to actually give us an update on what you're looking for, Fiona.
Okay, I'll just share my screen if I can. Window. Okay, could you see this presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah, visible.
Okay, so I'll just run through this quickly. So as I say, I work with IIRSM mainly on the Sentinel, and that involves the design side as well as the content side of the magazine. The magazine goes out every 2 months to all members, either as a print edition or as a digital link. And the email that goes out with the digital magazine lets us see which articles are the most popular and allows us to do a bit of monitoring of the links, and we can see which topics are the most interesting to people. In terms of Emerging Risk Leaders Network content, we've had some really good contributions so far on the podcasts, building the Ultimate Risk Professional podcasts from Trevor and Darren. We had a lovely piece from Robert Jukes on the importance of a support network. And then we've got some other features in the magazine which are more general, but are also very relevant to people at maybe early careers people, and also people who want to increase their knowledge of risk and move up in their organization. So questions that new managers might have, and also how to influence senior managers. So Karen did a webinar on that topic just this week, I think, or maybe last week. And also this article about how to influence senior managers, because that's obviously something that as risk professionals, you want to have your voices heard. In terms of coming up, the next issue is printing in the next few days and will be out in October. And we've got a lovely piece from Elzeby, and it's basically a really good article because it starts with a question asking the reader to consider whether they're considering their own mental well-being as well as their physical health, and that goes on to her own experiences and why it matters, why psychosocial risk is important. So it's a really good article because it's the perfect length, couple of pages, it's relatable, we can all feel anxious about work, and she goes into some of her own personal views, as well as offering some advice and practical tips to consider. So she wrote this for me, having basically thought about something that would be applicable to her work in South Africa, but also something that would apply to people reading elsewhere. So that's one that we've got for the next issue. And then what we're thinking about is some themes and some subjects and topics that might be of interest to February's issue and beyond. You don't have to write a fully formed article. We can have a chat about something that you might think about writing and then take it from there. You've already mentioned some work streams. I know that you have some various things that you're currently looking at: career progression, reviewing the management standards, and who takes responsibility for risk. Maybe as the work streams develop, there's a topic or an article that you can see coming out of some of those elements. And some of the other article things that we could think about would be topics that are just of relevance to you and your your fellow emerging risk leaders. Maybe there are things that you're facing at work that you want to get out there as issues and you want to have people discuss a bit better. So you can just drop me a line on any of these things. It is the 50th anniversary of IIRSM next year. So we want you to use the Institute and have your say. What we've been doing with the articles that are in the Sentinel is promote these on social media, and LinkedIn is our primary engagement channel. It's had a really good following and it's increasing every day. What we do is we post 3 of the articles from each issue of the Sentinel on LinkedIn, and we try to encourage people to become ambassadors for the content. And they get a lot of traction. We get a lot of people that are then looking at these, sharing the articles, and going to the IIRSM website and other places to find out a bit more. And then finally, here we've got a little bit of a link to the Emerging Risk Leaders podcast series that Trevor mentioned earlier. There is some chat about having another one, and that is to be confirmed at the moment. But I think it's something that would be really worthwhile to go back and listen to these if you haven't already. So that's it in a nutshell. Really keen to hear from you and anything that you might want to discuss. I'm on fiona@connectcommunications.co.uk, and I'm always looking for content for the next issue of the Sentinel.
Thank you, Fiona. Does anybody want to ask Fiona any questions?
I've got one. Is it okay to do a joint article? And the reason behind that is I was at the NEBOSH graduation event earlier I think this month, and I was speaking to Dr. Jonathan Backhouse, and one of the things that we got talking about was the research behind a lot of stuff that's on the IIRSM website, the HC website, IIRSM and IIRSM. And what we were trying to show was that actually there's a lot of research that sits behind these articles a lot of the time, but then we never go into that. And one of the things I was trying to understand was, you know, I look at it as a researcher when I'm doing my PhD, but then do individuals in day-to-day look at that and understand why some of the actions or some of the recommendations from HC are there. And that's what I was, it was a nice article that Jonathan was thinking could potentially put in some of the, looking a bit deeper than the guidance and understanding that for your workplace, basically. So there's a bit around that. And then the other thing was about the different resources that people can use in their role that might be handy. So, like, you know, one of the things that we've seen in a lot of the conferences out there is stuff like Mentimeter and stuff like that. And is it worth putting all that together in some kind of article for different tools and techniques that people can use and whatnot?
Absolutely. I mean, I think even if something doesn't make up an article, you know, fully about resources, there are places that things can link to. So it could be that it sits on the IIRSM website and there's an introduction article that then takes you to a list of all of this information. And in terms of research, I really like research-based stuff because I think it gives you a bit more insight into these things. And the couple of times that I've interviewed academics who are really into, obviously, their subject, I think it's come out really well as a strong article with a bit more depth. So, yeah, great ideas. Thank you very much.
And it should add to your CPD if you're an IIRSM member, and if you're a consultant, then, you know, even better, because we now have to prove what it is you're doing. So that should be good. I mean, any more questions for Karen? Fiona, sorry.
Yeah. So Fiona, just one thing actually, that do you also involve corporate dialogues as well in this magazine actually? Because I have seen mostly the content's been covering the HSE field or HSE professional in that. But how about the interviewing a CEO? Okay, what is their perspective with respect to health and safety and how they integrate risk management in everyday's decision making? So any
Fantastic.
opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a range of voices is key. And I think the only thing is that we want to avoid sales pitches. You know, we don't want a company to say, you know, this is what
Yeah,
we're doing. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that it's really vital that we have everybody speaking at different levels.
And
because today,
sorry,
Pamela. Yeah, Pamela.
I was going to say, what it adds to some of the discussions that we had before, wasn't it, about the whole psychosocial issues, the people risks and things like that. And I think to actually get the perspectives of the corporate in the struggles that they have in actually managing some of these risks, I think would be very valuable. And I think maybe even an HR director could be quite interesting. So I think
So this is the point actually, because I think we discussed in the previous calls as well that we are IIRSM actually different from IOSH, okay, in one way, because we promote risk management, where HSE is one part of the risk management.
yes,
And
exactly.
in the boardroom, they think risk differently today. And just to let you know, one challenge which we are facing, and it is a risk as well. We are in early stage now to defend it, how to defend it. The CSRD reporting is becoming a global mandatory for the companies like us. Okay, this is a part of the sustainability reporting, but it having a lot of contents related to HSE, people's well-being, HR, human rights, a lot of contents are there. And tomorrow you will see this will be a social language which we all will be using, the CSRD reporting, because it is one of the obligation for us to go for that. So to get the viewpoint of these different functional stakeholder or the different leaders, how they are concerned about it and how they are preparing themselves actually to tackle that, I think that kind of message we have to promote through this channel, okay,
Trevor,
rather than talking within the HSE network only.
yeah, Trevor.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit. I mean, it might have been said. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but about AI and the pros and cons of it in terms of our sort of sectors and industry. I mean, just risk management. Obviously, a lot of people sort of you can churn out risk assessments and bits and bobs using different models, and there's obviously a lot of there. So there might be a bit of, a bit like Robert said, the resources are available, they're good and approved, and also we're having discussion in house about a bit general in terms of staff. What are we allowing you staff to use? What are our approved AI models to use that? And there's a lot of stuff that's been churned out. And is that, even down to, is that a threat to us as professionals? If you can just get a risk assessment off the shelf that someone else has done or from AI, is that a threat to us? But why it's important to have that human touch. So that might be something to, I mean, I'm not saying I can write an article tomorrow if you're on that, but that might be something that some people might want to grab hold of, because that's quite.
It was certainly came up in the last meeting.
Yeah.
About that sort of escalation of technology and AI in particular, and
Yeah,
how you manage it and the impact. Sorry, Fiona.
We did an article a few issues back that was kind of about the general, this is a coming up as a big theme kind of thing. I think it's time to revisit it from that perspective, and just to say we know a bit more about it now, and it is definitely there. When you do a Google search, you see the AI stuff at the top. It's certainly something I've got to consider in my role.
I mean, there's a couple of sides about this. From we're a contractor and we're employing subcontractors. So where are they getting their information from? How are they demonstrating they've got competent people? Are they just getting it from a chatbot or something and whatever? And is it good enough? Are they actually then going to? So there's bits there thrown in there, but also there are benefits to it and how we can use that to our advantage. So getting through that sort of maze of things is probably important. And when we talked about it as a management team where I am, so how are we controlling that right down to designs? Are people just getting designs and throwing them in to do something? That's a risk. How we control it as a business. So it's probably an overriding thing. What's the policy? What are we allowing people to use? If we'd have a policy for some other areas, and what we're allowed to use and what we're allowed to store, etc. So there's maybe something there, or a few bits.
On the back of that, sorry.
Carry on, Robert.
On the back of that, there's two things actually goes onto the academic world. And the reason why I'm jumping on the back of that is my experience being external examiner of a university. And what I've found is, touching on what Trevor said, is if you foster how to use AI and use it effectively, it can be very powerful. And the universities that are pushing that and doing that are finding that students are using it to help their research and aid their research journey. Whereas the ones that are not being taught that and just say, no, you just can't use that full stop, they're finding that actually they're then using that to try and plagiarize assignments. And when we come into the world of work, what we found is that by saying that you can use certain ChatGPT, we don't have a problem with people using certain elements of that. But what we don't want is people putting in personal information, copying and pasting carte blanche, and we're showing how that can aid some of the journey and provide some of that. Now, there is some downsides to that that we've discussed, discussed internally, but in terms of being a force multiplier and an effective tool, it's become with some of our employees quite effective, and it's helped, especially when we look at some email sending, for instance, when people send something in the heat of the moment, getting them to maybe run that through or what they want to say in ChatGPT has certainly helped them reframe that and probably help some relationships between some of our team members, shall we say.
Which again fits in with the management standards and the whole relationship issue and this whole psychosocial stuff, and particularly with young people who tend to be the highest risk of having a mental health problem. So I think it's a very good point. We're using it in a similar way. We're using it to reduce the admin, the jobs that people don't like doing, sort of. So we're looking at emails, but we have to write case management reports. So can it write sort of case management reports? Can it transcribe telephone calls and input the information on the system? So I think it's got a lot of benefits and a lot of use, as well as you say, helping with research. But it's just making sure you've got the right guardrails and it's managed. But I think it would be a very interesting article to do an update, as Fiona said. So definitely.
Just on that, another thing as well is I found it useful. So the fishbone analysis. What I found is I put the factors in and say, can you put this in a fishbone analysis? Now I could go on PowerPoint or I could jump on the software and create it. It's going to take me probably 10-15 minutes. I could just put the factors in on ChatGPT and say put that in a fishbone analysis. It'll give me a download image that I can just copy out, drop in presentation in like a minute. And I honestly like the stuff that it can do. Obviously, got to be careful with personal information, but the stuff like that, in terms of speeding up and giving you more time back, I've been loving it, and it's enabled me to have more time to do what I want to do and be out on the shop floor speaking to people.
Yeah, but I think to Trevor's point, you might be quite comfortable with it, but there's an awful lot of other people that are worried about it, and are they going to lose their jobs? So I don't know whether anybody else has got comments on that side. Trevor, I don't know whether you want to expand on it more, or whether anybody else wants to come in on that. About,
I think it's just, obviously, is that an area that needs to be investigated a bit more? Is there the size of company? Is there can I use that? It's like any technology in any industrial revolution, isn't it? It comes. Is there threats to civil? There's always a role for humans and computers now and web, but it's more the quality. I was thinking as well, Pamela. It's like, is it going to cheapen what we do in terms of we're professionals, we're trying to do the best job we can, but it's got to work with us, like Robert was saying, it's got to work with us to give us those advantages, but within some sort of controlled environment, and people understanding its limitations and its full scope, really. Yeah. So, but there is that bit as well. Are you worried about? You used to have 2 safety advisors. You only got 1 now, and an AI bot. I don't know.
But I think it's a good point, because it goes back to that research, that evidence base, what we've actually sort of been talking about, and Fiona touched on as well, Robert sort of touched on. So I think there are a lot of people out there that need that guidance, but also, when we're assessing risk, it is a psychosocial risk. I could lose my job, or it might come up with something that I shouldn't be saying. There's a whole host of risks, I think, associated with this.
Yeah.
So if
People will lose their jobs over it.
Sorry?
People will lose their jobs over it, but it's one of those where you're going to have companies that will always cut corners and try to do that. But in the companies that understand the role of the health safety professional, if you use it for a tool to enhance your team, it wouldn't, in my eyes, replace someone, but you'd use it as a tool to improve the time that you can spend in more effective roles, which is cultivating them relationships, developing that culture within your frontline leaders and within your middle management to actually, understand the decisions they're making and more in that, understanding what we want them to do. It's giving you that time to actually spend face to face rather than behind a computer doing all the stuff that, we all know that we have to do, but it's not delivering much value.
But there's probably a couple of things, like Robert says, the pros and cons is a good article, maybe, Fiona, maybe even a survey of members to say, what do they use it for as well? What they're using it for, and it might share a bit there. So there might be something with that. Obviously, it's only as good as what's in there already, isn't it? It's drawing it from the whole of the web and stuff like that. So you've got to be wary of the quality and use your own thing. But if it saves you time, we're all tight for time, aren't we? We're all under pressure, so that's got to be a pro. But obviously, it's the concept that maybe people just need to share what's out there, but within that sort of what's the best, what's not.
But Robert, also,
Trevor.
I think something that's quite important, I think Leo, you probably touched on it as well, is do people really understand the role of the health and safety professional or the risk manager? So, and we talked about, and this is what would be a good one to go back to corporates, because my experience is, you know, health and safety is like, you know, over here in the corner somewhere, what we have to do. Unless you've got a good risk manager in your business, you don't really understand the breadth of what risk management can do. And I think some of my experience with some of the corporates, the risk manager is the person that buys the insurance products, as opposed to what all of you are actually sort of doing. So again, I think that could be a really interesting thing to actually that could come out of what we've discussed so far, is get some people's views in what they do understand about health and safety or risk management. Might be another question on that questionnaire, Trevor.
Just Pamela, just adding to Trevor's view on this AI part. Okay, so we have a big movement is going on in the organization in the AI. Okay, because we are selling AI solution as well, integrating with the automation and electrification. So now I think, as he mentioned, pro and cons, we have also come up with the policy ethical use of AI, which is individual responsibility. Okay, so ethical, so AI, it is we have to consider it as a source of information for reference only. Okay, that is clear, for reference only. So AI is not going to design a process or procedure for you, but it can help you to reduce the time burden, okay, reduce the admin task, okay, and also create a library of the document. Okay, so that the library source need to be reliable source. That is important for all of us in the corporate. So now recently we have introduced AI chatbot for our HSE management system globally. Okay, so this is an add-on feature with our own AI integration within the function, where you simply ask, you want to work on a like a scaffold. Okay, what is ABB standard on that? You ask this one, and then it will dig you all the procedure references, because our library is a controlled library, been updated by someone, regulated documents are there. But if you ask a question, oh, I have to build this panel, how much voltage I am going to discharge in that, okay, what are the safety measures? So it will simply says no, contact to your line manager or the job owner, as well as contact to your HSE manager, and carry out a detailed risk assessment. That also inbuilt feature. We know there are pro and cons. Okay, because people can also take that as excuse of reference. On the other side, we have to give a reliable information. That is a company responsibility as well, so people don't cross the red line of the risk management.
And I think from what I can gather is people have very much appreciated that, Leo. And is it something we could actually, you could share and do a case study on?
Yes, I am happy to do that.
Somebody's got their hand up and I can't see who. Oh, is that yours still on? Yeah, I think it's yours still, Leo. Yeah, so Trevor, did you want to say any, because I mean, you put that in the sort of chat. I think it's an excellent idea. Anybody that's been doing a good job on this, to actually share it with others if you're willing, that would be great. But Trevor, did you want to come in and say any more on that?
No, I mean, it's one area that I'm interested in, because I don't use it very much at all, but partly because I'm absolutely flat out. And if I want to dive into it, I want to make sure that I'm getting the best out of it, and I'm not. Like the data thing you said a few times is very important. You know, people understand that if whatever you put in is then free. You know, I think a few years ago, it's like Dropbox. There was something that someone said, if we use Dropbox, your stuff's available to other people. I don't know if that was true, but that was a rumor that came on when we started using Dropbox and sharing. Yeah.
Dropbox.
So understanding that stuff you're sharing, and it doesn't need to be personal. It could be just company data, isn't it? So understanding that, and it's interesting what Rohit was saying about his ABB policy, and I would have expected companies of his size would be doing that, but obviously that model could be used for smaller companies like mine and others, and it's about sharing something that all professionals at whatever size company can get out of it. So I think there's definitely a few bits in there, Fiona. I don't know what the answer is, but it's just an
I
idea
was
that's
going
coming
to say,
to me.
because there's quite a few people
Yeah.
that haven't had chance to contribute.
Yeah.
Is that Holly, Al-Zabi, Loveness? I'm not quite sure who else is still on the line now, but is there anything else that you want to add to this discussion? Moet?
I just think the suggestion of doing a survey to see what everyone is using AI for is a really, really good idea. And then I suppose we can build on it from there. But it'd be quite interesting to see who's using it. And like what was spoken about before, once we kind of know who's using it for what, that sort of gives people ideas of positive use and maybe some sort of policies that need to be put in place. I never really considered that until it was mentioned here about future policies to make sure if, okay, we are using this, then how are we going to use it constructively? But yeah, I think a survey would be excellent just to see what's out there, and that's probably the best way we can share ideas on how to use it.
Yeah, I think the survey would capture some of that. I think with Holly, I mean, one example. I was on a course the other day, and someone said, "Oh, there was a few professionals around the computer. They put a photo into some AI mechanism, and it came up with more hazards than they did between them, just looking at a photo of a site or a task that was being done." So there's obviously great benefits to doing that, but it's obviously what I wouldn't know about putting a photo in, but that's why I've not used it much. So that's what prompted me to sort of say there's advantage to me, but also if I'm not looking at it or haven't got time, and it could save me time, it's definitely worth looking at.
Rohit, did you want to come in and comment? I think yours is a useful contribution. Do you want to say any more on that?
No, I think what the stakeholders are looking from us, actually the simplification. Okay, so AI can help us a lot on that. Either it is a process simplification, procedural simplification, or activity simplification. Okay, so and parallelly we can conclude that the article even with the pro and cons like ethics. Okay, and don't to over rely on AI solution. Okay, because human touch is also equally important. Humans having experience while AI having a references only. Okay, so then a human part should not be missed out of that.
Anybody else? Moet, Hazelby, Loveness, any other comments on this subject around AI?
No, like it's a global, worldwide subject, and what we have discussed is very well, good in terms of today's world. Yeah, and the references and how to use it with the whether it is right or wrong information, that knowledge, and what Mr. Rohit says, human touch is equally important. So yeah, we can work on this subject. It's equally good.
Loveness, was you trying to contribute?
Yes, I want to say I totally agree with the concept to say we should do a survey, but I wanted to reiterate the point that AI is really advancing at lightning speed, but we do not want humanity to be left in the dust. I think the concept of merging AI with the humans is very critical. We need to have that humanity at hand. We need to have AI with a purpose where the humans are at the center stage of everything.
So I think what it sounds like is that we need to sort of look at who wants to lead something on this. But it sounds like Rohit, you've got, if you're prepared to share some, but then I think it might then start growing, into something which is really successful. And also, I think Robert said, like a series of articles and things like that we could actually get out of this. So. Are you all happy to, Rohit, if you actually sort of share what you can and outline what you can, that case study, and then probably other members can then sort of take it from there. And I think there's some really, really good points on this that have actually come up this morning, and it is a major issue for lots of organizations and not just in the risk management field. I mean, IT professionals are worried about it, HR is worried about it. So there's a lot of concern, but I don't think a lot of people are really getting a good understanding and doing what you've done. So again, if we're interviewing corporates, do we interview IT managers? Do we interview? So we've said CEOs, we've said HR, we've maybe IT could be a good one, because people are playing with AI, and is that a risk to the organisation that's not being considered?
I think it's an opportunity because for the institution to get, be proactive, get ahead of the, talk about it, prompt that have people got policies, and we're thinking about it from a risk and safety management perspective, and that might prompt other discussions, like I say, with other parts of the business, that coordinated approach. Because it links a little bit, Pamela, the stuff that we did before the podcast about what does a risk professional look like.
Yeah.
And risk professionals aren't just safety professionals; they're across the board in all parts. Commercial risk, environmental risk, it's across the board. So sharing a bit of that in an article as well, Fiona, that risk professionals aren't just safety, risk management is across the board. So you could view anyone as in the business as a risk manager, couldn't you? And how that looks, and then how they work together. So maybe something there that I could share, Fiona, what we did early on that might help as well for something to the side. Yeah.
I think that would be good. And Karen, you had a point that you put in the chat. Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, just as I was listening, this is a fantastic discussion that's made me think. I think often the fear of new things comes from the unknown, but actually when we can channel a fantastic tool like AR to deliver what we want it to, that puts us more in control. Because I'm thinking, when I did a survey back in April on the topic of engagement in health and safety, and asking health and safety professionals what they struggled with trying to engage others, one of the biggest barriers was lack of time. And I hear this complaint a lot about the burgeoning remit of the risk professional. We've already heard it on this call, which means you're getting caught up in bureaucracy and firefighting, whereas really you want to do the value-adding stuff like building relationships. And also, if you've got some unique expertise that AI can't do, that's where you want to be focusing your time. So I think it gives us a real opportunity to be clear on our role and where we add value, because I think the rest of the organization is probably not truly clear on it. And once we have that clear picture, we can then decide how we want to use AI to get rid of the stuff we don't want to do, and to create time for us to add value in the areas where nobody can replace us.
And I think from a psychosocial perspective, and people being concerned about AI, that starts to overcome some of the psychosocial problems with it. And anyone else want to say anything? Very great conversation.
Pamela.
Yeah, sorry,
Pamela,
Robert.
just one point I just want to bring as well. Maybe that is the important topic as well. I had some conversation with my HR colleagues too, okay, and they're working on a people strategy in the long term. Like, everything is becoming a digital. Okay, they want to have a more human touch as well, but in the digital world, it's quite difficult. And they use a lot of psychological safety today. Okay, how employee feel in any organization, how they are comfortable, how they speak up, like a comfortable to speak up, meeting to the people as well, how a manager to peer relationship is there. So that is a totally different perspective of the psychological safety, what risk professional we think about it.
And I think Leo, didn't he? So when we were talking on I don't know which meeting it was now, but I mean, I think Leo was quite interested in actually, if I say challenging the management standards are 20 years old, and a lot of people don't do psychological safety. They don't assess psychological risk. And it integrates totally with the whole well-being piece as well. So you've got HR going off and managing, putting EAPs in or whatever they might be doing to do it down their route, but without understanding what are the occupational stresses, who can be harmed and how. And so I think that those management standards, I think there's a lot of people in a corporate that don't even know about them, let alone understand them. So I think that a piece of work on updating the management standards, which is what we said, I think it was probably at the first meeting, I think would be really, really valuable, and something I personally like to, to support anyone on that wants to get involved in that.
But this point I have really seen interesting, and even I started to rethink my health and well-being strategy now, pulling HR, some like a members or peer group over there, we are there coming up with the ideas how we can improve the work environment, having a peer to manager relationship. Okay, because that will be indirectly helping me in health and safety when we have a speak up culture, transparent culture as well. We have a closer engagement. We can pull the same team for the risk management topic effectively if the manager and peers are working closely. So that is indirectly benefiting me as well. So then I think it is really good to cover somewhere in the in these articles psychological safety, a different perspective, how a CEO think about psychological safety, how H function think about it, and how HSE professional think about it. And then we can put it everything under a one company umbrella, because everyone having a role to play in that. It's not a
Yeah.
one person, one function job.
And a lot of organizations, in my experience, corporates that I deal with, are not actually doing that. And what of our data shows as well. So people that go off sick, people that are claiming on healthcare plans, people that are using the EAP, there's also a lot of it is actually not work related. There is an element which is work related. There's a lot which is out in people's social lives and personal risks like excess weight, inactivity, and all of those other things that if you have to treat some of those things if the individual is willing to engage. Some people say, well, that you can't treat what is outside the control, but we've actually sort of seen that if you start treating those underlying risks, then people are not going absent. They are getting better. Their well-being is improved, both their physical and the psychological. So I think that's another element. Is it something that health and safety professionals, risk managers are prepared to actually consider to assess as a risk or not? Because from a health and safety point of view, if somebody was obese and were climbing up ladders, it would be assessed. So why not from a psychological perspective, how those things like excess weight and inactivity increase the risk of somebody having anxiety, depression, high levels of stress, etc. So just wanted to throw that out there because we talked a lot about people risks in the last ones and actually say there's a lot of work to do on these people risks. So has anybody else got any sort of comments that they want to share or experiences in the group?
Just going on the health and wellbeing, I actually was speaking to a cancer doctor in the gym yesterday, just speaking, and one of the things that he was talking about was he actively protects the time after his work to immediately go to the gym, no matter how late he finishes. Or say how he generally tries to protect that time, and he's got it in. He actually, classifies that's part of his working day now. That he just goes, even if he just goes to the steam room and the the hot tub. He basically was saying that what he was trying to do was just it's that unwinding and trying to just decompress for the day. And he's actually booked that into his diary now every single time. So even if he's got something on with the kids, he will finish earlier in work. Or set his diary to finish early in work that day, so that then he can then still do that time to decompress. And when he mentioned that, I never really thought about looking at mental health and well-being in that way, that you set a regimented time to give yourself that time, whatever it be, because it doesn't have to be the gym or it could be something else. But what he said about protecting that time in his week and building that, and that's something that he's built over the last 20, 30 years or more. It kind of made me think about what we're doing as an organisation. How do we ensure that our employees are protecting that time, especially the people that are in the kind of middle management senior roles, where you do get tempted to go on your phone and start looking at emails in the evening and stuff like that. And I know it's bad practice that, but how do we get them out of that and protect time for family time and stuff like that? And that was something that I was looking at. How do we build these safeguards and kind of regiment that actually, we're going to encourage people to do that and treat it almost like you would any kind of important meeting kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we've actually seen in our data it's got worse since the pandemic and home working, because people can't isolate work from home, and like you say, they can carry on into sort of the evening, and they actually feel more stressed. They thought it was going to be like, oh, work-life balance is going to be better if we're home working, but actually what we're actually seeing is because of this lack of separation and doing exactly what you said, is that is causing problems. And what do they then do? They actually turn to drinking more alcohol. They don't find the time to actually go out and walk or cycle or run or whatever it is you say, go to the gym. And they also might be eating a higher sugar diet and things like this. So I think for me, it's very, very relevant. It's the sort of stuff that we see in probably 85% of cases that go absent and claim on healthcare plans. There's these underlying risk factors, and a lot of it is just not just work, it's life and how life has actually changed. So I think we're into that new societal issue, which is, I think as risk professionals, we can actually help assess and help manage, but that then goes across to other disciplines like HR, etc., because they're not doing it. So I think risk, to me, I think risk is something risk managers would be able to get heads around fairly sort of quickly and help other parts of the business. Yeah. Anybody else got anything they want to contribute to this?
I think maybe something that prompted me, and it was Karen came to my company and did a bit of a speech which just popped into my head again, to mention that maybe we talked a lot about make sure risk professionals are, we get the right respect and we concentrate on the things that make that value. Part of that is helping other members of staff to identify what they can do for the bigger message and how they can push back on objections to safety and stuff like that. So you're empowering people to take ownership of safety. And there's probably, whenever I read any articles, not that I have much time to do that, is there's not much about that in terms of everyone's I say in my inductions for new starters, everyone's a health and safety manager. You've all got your part to play, you've all got responsibilities. So is there a bit there that how do we, as risk professionals, communicate to our other staff around the business to say, you've all got responsibilities. I might be in name, but actually what you can do to help me, because then I can add more value to what you're doing. So what you need to take, and a lot of guys are busy, project managers are busy doing their designs, and engineers like doing their engineering. But we've all got a duty, haven't we, to help each other. And that's what's set out in all the regulations. But how do we help people to do that and take on that empowerment responsibility?
I think that links to a business continuity plan and DRG though as well. And having just had an experience on Friday where our office flooded thanks to the wonderful weather. But what was interesting is a lot of senior managers were not around at the time, and the staff, because it's the sort of thing that we've tried to encourage, they just took control and did what they needed to do. But I think it's a very good point in actually helping everybody realise they've got a responsibility on that. Sorry, somebody else was trying to come in as well, and I cut them off.
So just on Trevor's point here, I think today is the time we should integrate risk management in every process. Okay, which means he used the example of project managers. So how we are integrating HSE risk management in project management processes, that is a smarter way to do the work. Okay, because generally in a company, risk professionals are limited. Maybe ratio is 100 to 2 or 100 to 3 only. Okay, that's the ratio. We are the professional. So we have to carefully examine actually that how we can pull the people towards ourselves rather than push the HSE or the risk management processes towards them. Okay, otherwise they will feel as a burden because they have 100 other things to contribute on or KPI to deliver it actually. And that's the approach we have applied, and it is functioning really well. So once it comes a HSE responsibility, HSE is no more responsibility, it's accountability now. We are switching from responsibility to accountability word now within the organization.
Sorry, no, carry on, Trevor.
No, I think the key thing is what we're all working for ultimately is that we don't need to be known as health and safety professionals, although there's a status and a brand and it's we want everyone to be health and safety professionals, and it's not even called health and safety, it's just what we do, isn't it? And that's talked about all the way, just what we do. So maybe there's an article, something that we can sort of, how do we help that process sort of, it's probably done in different ways, but how do we help the people around us, or how do we help health and safety professionals sell that message that we're all in it together, and you can help, I know it's done in different ways, but maybe we could do it in a slightly different way, that there's a benefit and giving tools to professionals to sell that message in a certain way. There's probably stuff already out there, but maybe the group might have some ideas about how to do it better. I know Karen about communications and selling it and objections. I've heard her sort of stuff about the techniques of doing that, so that could be in the mix. Just an idea.
Trevor, I think this is
sorry.
so.
Sorry.
So Trevor, this was the idea I was sharing actually, that maybe it will be good to have a coffee chat kind of session with one of the CEO. Okay, how they deliver down the HSE responsibility within the organization, actually, how they embed or integrate HSE within starting from himself or herself down the line itself. Okay, and there can be a smart questions, or we can put it over there, and that will give also a reflections. Maybe we can have a 2 or 3 round on that with the different people, and then we can say how it should be really risk management should be integrated within the organization. That will also become a practical tool for many professionals in the risk field itself.
And I think I might throw this one at Julie, because something that's crossed my mind as you've been speaking is whether IIRSM could open its doors to a broader range of professionals. Because at the moment, there's a lot of people in organisations that really don't understand risk management or health and safety. But could IIRSM actually sort of do something to start looking at CEOs, HR professionals, etc.? Julie, I'll throw that at you to see whether it's something that might be in your plans to get some of these things taken forward and helping people understand.
I only caught half of that because you're freezing. I think it's my internet connection, so I'm going to turn my camera off again. Apologies. Yeah, I know that is something we want to do. I mean, we're trying to encourage more members from all areas of risk, not just health and safety and pure risk management. So we can definitely take that back to Sabrina and Philip.
I think
Yeah, definitely.
There's probably a bit with that, Julie, that we like I said a bit earlier about what we do. It's just almost making people in different roles realise that they are dealing with risk. They might not view it as safety risk, but they're dealing with risk, and maybe that's an opportunity for the institution to sort of say risk can be controlled in similar ways across the whole of the business, and everyone benefits. And then back on people being empowered, I'm quite basic. I like simple things. So the way we sell that, if we can give the tools to some professionals to sort of say, how do you sell? Because there's loads of stuff about, and sometimes in some of the things I attend, it's like very technical. It all sounds brilliant out of the guidance and the procedures and the regulations. But actually, how do I just go and speak to my guys to make sure they're really empowered and they have the backing and the strength, but actually just make it very simple and give people some simple tools about what to do? I mean, obviously I work in construction and bits and bobs, so it might be different across sectors, but just making it nice and simple, and so people get involved in it and say, sure, it isn't that difficult, although we are professionals and we are qualified, but to get involved in it and know their role in it is quite simple.
So like a communication speech and a kind of education part there. Yeah. Great, I'll take that back.
I know we talked about AI earlier and had a great conversation on that, but I mean, it goes beyond AI, doesn't it? I mean, the whole technology is a huge risk for the way in which we're communicating using technology now. So it's not just AI. So again, the other people that could be very interesting to actually work with would be those CTOs, those IT managers, because a lot of people go to IT conferences and they go there for like the first session and then they sort of walk out, or they don't understand the broader issues. They could be very busy, and then some are, are really starting to look at the risks. But again, I don't know whether, do you guys integrate with the IT side at all? I mean, we talked about AI, but how about the overall technological piece?
Yeah, we have a bit of both. We use an IT team that support and do stuff, but then we actually, whether it's right or wrong, get quite heavily involved in the build of our software systems. And one of the problems we have is trying to condense them. I don't know about other organisations, but we have about, if we're looking just down from safety and launch, we've got 24 different software solutions. So we're getting them to use APIs to speak to each other, and we're trying to condense some of them down. And then we look at how we work with our departments, and that's become an issue. Is that we've got training records we're saving somewhere, then we've got HR saving training records somewhere else. So can we get an API that will speak to each other so that we can both use the software systems we like, or do we just say, right, one team's going to be upset when we sit there and say, right, we're going to get rid of that software system for that and use just one carte blanche across the organisation? So there is a bit of both there, to be fair. But I think that the role of what we do, especially if we wanted to push automation or AI, and we want to get especially our like frontline leaders using this software, is understanding some of these technical details now and how them interactions are actually going ahead, and are they actually what we want, or are they actually causing problems for our frontline leaders and members using it, and how do we tweak them so that it's a more A, less hassle and less stressful experience, but B, something that they then become reliant on using.
And I think the other side to that as well is people, human behaviour, as probably one of your biggest exposures on IT anyway. And again, going back to the point about responsibility and educating people to be, everybody's involved in health and safety. I think everybody's involved in risk management, but they don't appreciate how important that is. And that, you know, a single action can actually cause a huge problem for an organisation. So I think IT professionals might be one, Julie, we can put on the list as well. So we get that cross professional sort of conversation going on. Anybody else got any other questions?
So, Pamela, one thing on that as well, as you mentioned about IT team, we had some experiences like that. Okay. And now we have developed even a risk assessment process for IT, which means any of the supplier, they have to onboard even a cloud services. They have to go for a deep dive risk assessment because everything is linked with the data today. And the impact of the data, the damage is huge. The financial damage is huge to any of the company now today. Okay, so that's the reason company is becoming sensitive on that. So there are two other functions in my head actually that who are really close to us today. One is integrity. Okay, so we have an integrity and ethics function. Okay, so now everything in health and safety goes along with them in integrity, which means whatever we report publicly, okay, or whatever we follow the process like investigation, it should be employee friendly. Okay, it should not be against using this opportunity against anyone. Okay, so that has been tracked globally. No punishment. Okay, so no punishment, otherwise it can go as a integrity hotline as well. Okay, that's our policy. It's a publicly declared, even communicated to every employee. So no retaliation with the respect to HSE. Okay, so we kill that culture now when you have to put a blame and you have to fire one, even a senior manager. So then, and any investigation has to start, the recommendation should start with the senior manager, not with the employee level. Okay, we should not talk even with the employee. And second thing, internal control. I don't know if you are familiar with the function internal control under finance. Okay, so which means every data, it's not a wish list for me as a HSE manager to report some number somewhere. If I am reporting, I'm accountable for ethics and giving the accurate numbers as well, because it will go outside. And there is an internal control team along with the consultant who validate it, so it goes in a public platform, any data. So we have also some kind of sensitivity to share the data because of this internal control policy. Good to see the maturity of these two functions getting involved in the HSE function on the risk management, and they become a helping hand for me, okay, in my day-to-day job role every day.
And that's great, but as ABB, you're a large organisation, global organisation, but I think we've got people on the line who actually work for smaller organisations, and I'd like to hear from and Connor. I've just seen Connor come on his iPhone, but I'd like to hear some views of anyone that works for a smaller organisation of how difficult some of this might be. Anybody want to comment? No, they've all gone silent. I don't know how many people we've got still left on. Karen, I'm just looking at the sort of chat. Karen, did you want to add another comment, because you were talking about what we were talking about just before we moved into that element?
Yeah, this is so fascinating, this conversation. You've got so much here to share. And I was just thinking, what Rohit was talking about then, I think that is best practice, really. I think we've got a lot of opportunity, probably through the Sentinel magazine, to educate organizations on what excellence in risk management is. Because what Rohit's talking about obviously is enabled by the fact he's in a large organization and they're ahead of the curve on all this stuff. But actually, there's probably some principles and some learnings that can be shared that other people in smaller organizations can do formally. Because if you take away the big functions and the systems, what underlies that is an idea and a principle that makes it successful. So, you know, and I was thinking about all the stuff on AI as well. We're discussing some stuff here that would be really powerful to share, because if we start to paint a picture on what excellence looks like in terms of risk management, then we've got the opportunity to look at where do we fit, what's our role in it, what do we need from the rest of the organization, and then how AI can help us. So I can see a whole series of articles that we've mapped out. Fiona, I don't know if your mind is boggling as well, but you know, with sort of content opportunities. And because I'm new to IIRSM, I don't know to what extent you've featured this kind of stuff before. But if we start painting the picture on what excellence is, then we are changing the landscape, really. And we're educating the industry through thought leadership. And it's such a big picture that it builds up the potential for lots of individual articles, because you're talking about well-being, psychological safety, psychosocial risk, and actually you've got things like AI that are going to completely change the game. So in a way, it forces us to go back to fundamentals. What does excellence look like in risk management? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Karen, you're very much promoting Sentinel, but some of this information, going back to everything else that we've been discussing about how we broaden the knowledge of risk management to different disciplines, is it something that we should be looking at and putting in other magazines, you know, HR sort of magazines, for example? Is it something other publications could benefit from? And we've got lots of hands up. So Fiona, you've got a hand up. Robert, you've got your hand up. Fiona, did you want to comment on that first?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, all of this feedback is fantastic, and there's definitely stuff to take forward from this. I think Rohit, I'd love to speak to you about the work that you're doing on AI, particularly, and maybe that's a starting point that we may then move on from with the survey and other different things that we can do. To me, IIRSM and the Sentinel are always putting across that message that risk is everyone's responsibility. To me, that's just what it is. Its messages are always about that, and we try to do that in a number of different ways, not just the Sentinel, but with other things. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still work to do to get the message out, and it doesn't mean that you know, we should be taking one voice over others. So I'd like to hear from everybody on these sorts of things. But yeah, if we could start with the AI stuff and move on from there, that'd be fantastic. A new project.
Are you happy for everybody to bombard you with?
Absolutely. I'll email Rohit first, and maybe we can start something together.
Okay for that. Okay.
Robert, you also had your hand up, and then
Yeah, so for me, I know this is recorded and we're talking about content. I think we've had quite a powerful and quite a really beneficial discussion between us all. I don't know if there's any way whether anyone would want to do this, but it might be worth putting a snippet together, or maybe just 10 minutes or for 15 minutes from what we've discussed today. Maybe put something out there that on that to then maybe launch some kind of survey on the use of AI or stuff like that. It's just something that I thought, I've really got a lot of benefit out of this session so far, and I thought it might be something that we can kind of share that to a wider audience and maybe show some of what we are trying to do with this. With this
volunteers that might like to do that, because I think, you know, it is a good idea.
Even if you have to revisit, ask the question again and just do a quick webinar on that, Robert, and just sort of have the same discussion, but produce it out and send it out. But I think it's a good idea to share what we talk about if it's recorded.
Yeah, I'll spot it either way, whatever you want to do. But just something I thought I'd throw out there.
No, I think good idea. And Trevor, you got your hand up anyway.
It wasn't up there. Sorry, I left it up.
It's all right. Have we got anybody else that's online that wants to contribute? Connor, we've not heard from you, because I think you've only recently joined, although I might not have seen you on my screen, but anybody else want to contribute?
Yeah, apologies, I joined late there. I'm on holiday, so trying to tie into the conversation. I was just picking up on Rohit's point, and I think it's a point we were discussing on our previous session. And with large organisations, a lot of those controls are there. One of the challenges that we have in a much smaller organisation often is belief that as soon as we start talking about issues with the management systems and the management controls, that we're point and blame at the organisation. And in a smaller business, a lot of the senior directors get very uncomfortable with that. So I think there's probably a piece there where we need to do an education around how do we start to bring senior leaders of 1,000 and less organisations to understanding that their risk profile is different, and taking on blame and looking at the management system itself isn't, so poor wording there, looking at the management system itself isn't taking on blame. It's around that education and that improving things for going forward, but it's a place I've seen hesitancy a lot. So there is probably a big piece to do there.
I think it's why ISO's introduced that opportunities for improvement as well, language, as opposed to the, some of the language that they used before. So I think it's definitely a good point.
And I think that's where some of these organisations struggle. So when I say smaller organisations, I'm talking 1,000, 1,500 people or less. But what I tend to find is they use the ISO accreditations as being their comfort blanket. And once they've gone through the ISO and they've got no non-conformities, then everything absolutely must be fine. And when it comes to the incident investigations off the back of something going wrong, they're not interested in hearing what the management system failings are, because we've passed the ISO, so therefore everything must be rosy. And actually, it's trying to change that mindset that no, by continually improving these areas, that actually it's going to benefit your ISOs. But it's just, I think the approach to risk for a lot of the senior directors, if it's not their day to day, is the challenge sometimes.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's quite interesting, is it? But it's that tick box with ISO.
Absolutely.
Organisations go, oh, yeah, I've done that now, and we see it. It's like there's other things out there, well-being things that are out there, and they think, oh, I've done that. It's like having mental health first aiders. Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, we've got them. So therefore, everyone's mental health in the business must be fine.
Exactly, yeah. So I think from a risk point of view, it's a very interesting point, because people do tick boxes and they actually don't identify what the organisational risks are or what the people risks are, and how they come together and can actually be something quite serious. Anybody else that wants to contribute to the discussion? Because I'm just thinking, looking at the time as well, we're now sort of an hour and 15, and we've got 2 hours sort of scheduled. Is everybody still comfortable to carry on? I was just going to start looking at, and a lot of it's come out of this discussion, is what else did we say we were going to do, and have we progressed those things? Trevor, obviously, you will want to progress what you're trying to do, but I understand you need some help. Do you want to, just in case anybody else wants to help sponsor you?
Yeah, so I was keen to carry on with the podcast, explore that a bit more. I spoke to Darren Sutton on email and said, would you be interested in sponsoring going forward? Got a mixed response. Obviously, he's very busy. I think he really enjoyed doing it, just how we do that. But then I started talking to Sabrina about having a discussion about what sponsorship would look like, because obviously we want to go to people with what that would look like, what would it mean. And I haven't caught up with Sabrina, partly because we've had a couple of issues that I've had to sort out in work, and I've got a management review on Monday, so it's busy at the moment. But I'm keen to sort of know what IIRSM can suggest. Maybe we've not done it before. We've done something before, to go to Darren's initially and other people to say that this is how you can support the podcast, get involved, to carry that on, and then we can maybe use it as a vehicle for other parts of the emerging risk leaders, etc.
Yeah, and it might be the collaboration You know,
Yeah.
people, if people are interested in it, from what I understand, the cost of it would be, it might be that a lot of people would be interested in putting something in to actually help get this off and running, because it is such a good idea and it's what's wanted, and it would be a shame if it isn't continued. So, Julie, what you're going to chat to Sabrina, and then Julie and I will pick that up as well. We talked about the management standards and actually trying to update those. Is that something that people still think would be useful? Actually trying to 20 years on, and given the conversation that we've had today, those management standards are very, very outdated now. And companies aren't using them. And I think it goes back to the fact that they're too complex for a lot of people to use, or they don't, you know, some risk managers may not feel it's their situation, it's HR, but of course HR haven't got a clue about this. So do we want to do, I've got one organization that's interested in actually, you know, taking it forward, so a large corporate, but I didn't know how people felt about that now.
I think I said it when we started talking about it before. I think just calling them the management standards just doesn't help in the world of renaming it, because management standards in a lot of my work is the quality bit, the ISOs, that sort of stuff. So just almost re-looking at that, just getting them out there as an opportunity to rebrand and go for it. I went on a stress risk assessment course with Heather Beach the other day, which was really useful, talking about management standards and stuff like that. But obviously, it just still doesn't sit. However, Heather Beach, I know she's very good at that. The healthy working company or whatever she's got lots of interest into that, and maybe a resource we can call on in terms of if we want to sort of rewrite or rebrand. It's obviously, I think it'd be worthwhile pursuing that, but I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
Yeah, I think so. Anybody else want to comment on that? Because it really is at the heart of the psychosocial risk factors, is that and I think the other flaw with it's sort of like, just like a standard risk assessment, identify your occupational risks and then who can be harmed and how. And there is no evidence, no advice to actually sort of how you actually sort of do that. So I think a lot of organisations just shy away from it because they think it's nigh on impossible.
We're just sorry.
Carry on, Robert.
We're actually just launching a new wellbeing committee in the paper industry. I'm actually chairing that next week, and that's something that we're looking at, is to actually trying to change the whole industry's approach to wellbeing, because we know that the industry's bad at it. We know that the attitudes are terrible at times. Some of the attitudes are really proactive and brilliant, but then some of the attitudes we deal with are very much why do we have to do that, and still kind of an old school approach. So we're sitting around the table. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday next week, and we've got a lot of different companies attending. So this is kind of quite timely for us. It'd be quite handy if we do that, something that I can take to them and get their feedback on it as well, and could feedback what that is. I could even ask the question in the first meeting and bring back what, because that'd be across the whole sector. I know it's only one industry, but in terms of getting the input from probably 10 different companies, then that would be quite powerful, I think.
Can I ask you a question though? What is the definition in this group of not this group has it, but the group that you're dealing with, of well-being?
Well, that's what we're going to ask them. No, we're asking that, and the other thing that I'm asking them all as well to do is I've got a little quiz there on the management stats, all the stats, HSC stats that came out, and around that as well, because I'm expecting that although we're going to have some quite senior people from these organisations, it's not going to be there's not going to be many people knowing the answers to them. I reckon everyone will know about them, but I don't think they'll know what the answers are, which shows that we've got work to do anyway for the thing. But yeah, limitations around that as well. It's something that defining what that is as well is an interesting question as well.
And I think it needs defining, because a lot of people use well-being as being mental health or mental ill health when people get stress, anxiety, depression, but you can't separate physical health from mental health, because I don't know whether anybody's noticed, but our bodies function as a whole. So, somebody could be presenting with digestive problems, somebody could be presenting with low back pain. I mean, there could be a whole host of conditions that lead to a psychological factor. So I think well-being is about being the best that you can be holistically, not just mentally. So I think, let us know how you get on, Robert.
Will do.
Anybody
Sorry,
else? Sorry,
can
go.
I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert, just sharing some of my experience as well. Okay, so how we dealt with a similar situation. So we put this topic on a table and we run a workshop with all the cross-functional people. What is mental health and well-being about? As Pamela, you asked the definition. Okay, so everybody having a different definition. And then we try to link it with the employee engagement survey, okay, which HR does. So we try to club it together, match it together. And then we find out this mental health and well-being issues are also linked with our recruitment, delay decision in the recruitment, not replacing with the people are not consuming the leave, okay, due to the financial crisis. Okay, there are a lot of factors are there behind it. And then afterwards we come up with the action plan, setting up the priority, that it's a collective topic. It's one function can't fix, neither HR function can fix it, neither HSE function can fix it. Okay, so it should need really a management focus on that. And then one of the action we come up, that any of the meeting, okay, any of the meeting should not be more than 25 minutes or 55 minutes, okay, like a half an hour, because people also need the break actually. And today, in today's world, our calendars are full, like it's overflowing actually in a global kind of job, and a virtual kind of network as well. So we also went for this kind of micro actions, okay, which is paying us back today. So today we have not to train any person on a mental health and well-being, because managers knows that my decision is going to affect my team's health and well-being, similar to the safety now. So we are moving towards that maturity today. So I think that will be good to put this topic as a risk topic on a table and do a risk assessment in a conversation with everyone. Now, what is people's view behind it?
I think it would be another good point. And conscious of meetings going on too long, and I know we've got 2 hours in the diary, but we said managing senior leaders and who is responsible for risk, but I think that's, Trevor, some of what are you picking up with some of those in that area with some of what you're doing in the podcast? Or I mean, we've talked about it in this meeting today, but educating others, or is it
something we can look at? I mean, we had a mix of people on it, in terms of we were conscious not to have the heads of big businesses all the time, to get a good mix of some specialists in there, because I think sometimes, I don't listen to every podcast, but you get lots of people in higher positions that talk about their good stuff, but actually sometimes it's good to see people in the trenches, if you want to say that, doing the work and being involved in it, as opposed to a CEO or a top. But it's the right mix, isn't it? The right blend. I mean, going back a little bit, what we talked about is we're looking at our objectives and mission and vision, and we talk about ISO standards, and ultimately the holy grail for me would be to, whatever the business strategy is the same as the objectives in the IMS system, and it all links up and all together. But I've worked in several companies where they just don't link up. The IMS objectives sit separately, or the ISO sit separately, and the business run separately, because the boards don't really realise that they should be the same, and the system should benefit everyone and help how you manage it. But when I first got trained to be a lead auditor, that's what I thought everyone would be doing, and I've worked for several companies, and they don't do it. They don't link it up, and that's part of the holy grail. So if you get that right at the top, and everyone knows their part to play to get those objectives, then so I don't know if there's a shortcoming, or we've got to make some money first before we do anything else, please.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to actually getting people in organisations to understand. But I'm also wondering, is there an educational piece here? Is it something like EMIC, IOSH? Other people could actually get involved in trying to educate the risk professionals. But then, do we go to other professional bodies to actually educate the HR people? I mean, I think it's a really good point, but I definitely agree with you. Right, in the organisations I deal with, everything's in silos, and nobody talks to each other. And as I say, risk often gets
But
swept.
but you're saying that, Pamela, when you go on a course or you talk about something, everyone says you should do it like this. This is the perfect model, and you take it away. And that, I might be speaking just for myself, but you take it away and go, oh my God, how am I going to do that where I work? Because the perfect model doesn't fit because I've got different scenarios, and to actually do it as a professional, can I do it? You know, obviously people are lucky; they get really good MDs and boards that want to get involved, and everyone's busy, etc., on boards and things, and they've got to just make the business succeed. But is there some techniques or people have used that they can share that maybe a slightly more difficult business or a less receptive board, you can do that? Because it's all right saying it's important, but ultimately they've got to get the buy-in. And
it's managing upwards, isn't it? But also again, I mean, I sit on the strategic board of Business for Health, and we're trying to do something with ONS. But it's like, where is there any data on this coming out that people can actually read? There is a benchmark of knowing what does good look like, or so if somebody is not doing something and not cooperating, can they get marked down? So again, maybe we should have a risk management sort of measurement. So a lot of people are doing it on different things, and the ONS are looking to expand what they do, but maybe risk management and should be part of that, and we do that. Totally agree. Sustainability and environment. I think Rohit mentioned some of this earlier, but that was another topic that came up, something we wanted to address. Has anybody else got any comments on issues around that?
So I think sustainability context is really wide today, and we have to see that how HSE function interface towards the sustainability. And there are some opportunity as well to just exchange the information. Okay, and being HSE professional, we should be aware about what is coming up in the market actually. I mean, giving you one example about CSRD. Okay, that's a new regulation. Okay, mainly in the Europe, is driving the whole world actually, and it having a lot of element. Even I'm not sure how many interfaces are there, but I'm doing some work now for my own role and my own team now to evaluate how we have to allocate the job to the different functions as part of the reporting requirement. Because one side I have seen 550 questions has to be answered in that reporting, and that is going to become a normal norm for everyone actually going forward.
And we'll spend so much time answering questions and surveys and doing everything, but we'll never have time to do anything properly.
No, I'm being smart over there. I'm working with the company to develop some AI solution for that.
Oh, there you go. Sharing best practice. So anybody else want to talk about issues with sustainability? Because it's the buzzword, but and everybody's like going, yeah, we've got to do this. But are there any pushbacks or any other issues that anybody's actually sort of getting in this area? No.
I think it goes along with the previous conversation we were having, but it's all about bringing all of the departments in on the conversation. One of our biggest challenges around this sustainability piece is supply chain. So we're having big conversations with all of the supply chain around how we're going to make sure that the products that they're delivering to us, but as far as they're concerned, they set their standards and you either buy our product or you don't. And so what we're now trying to do is make sure that, a bit like the wellbeing conversation, you need all the departments working together. Actually, the risk function doesn't sit with, we refer to it as she within our business. It doesn't sit there. And actually, a lot of our role at the minute seems to be bringing all of the departments together to enable a lot of these conversations. But it does seem to be exactly the same from a sustainability point of view, that everybody needs to play their part and everyone needs to get actively involved in the conversation, which traditionally doesn't seem to have been the way that it's been done.
No, interesting, isn't it? And the last one on our list that we made as a key focus, which again has been touched on slightly today, but is that financial and reputational risk. So anyone want to comment on that? Because a lot of this stuff, if you get it wrong, I mean, it will impact your reputation and it will impact financially, particularly if you get fined or there's a major disaster.
No, we are sensitive. We are sensitive on this topic because it is my everyday's job of risk management because of the mining and metal sector we operate.
Yeah.
So we have a really strong processes in place in a due diligence. which even we integrate from the day one when sales bring the opportunity. Okay, from the day one, even we are bidding for that job. So everything goes under like a governance model. So we keep a close track because we can be easily impacted with this.
Is there anyone else that, and particularly in smaller organisations, that wants to actually sort of comment about this? Is it something that gets considered, or
I think this is almost a dirty word within a lot of the health and safety teams. I've started to learn. So we're very much focused on the people, but as soon as you start talking about protecting the organisation for the health and safety teams that I've been part of, that almost seems to be something that we're not responsible for. And actually, I think it's about making the same message across every comment I've made so far. It's about getting all of those parts of the business to work together and realising actually you have an influence on everything. But it's very much as a conversation I've brought up recently, which is why I laughed. But yeah, the response I got back was less than engaging. But it seems to be that. There's a focus around if we're a she function, our responsibility is the people. But actually, without a business, then there's no people to protect, and it's about trying to engage that message that this all has to work together, and that seems to have been the challenge so far.
And the people can have an impact on the business, and the business can have an impact on the people. So you can't separate.
Absolutely.
But you do get buy-in with the operational teams, though, when you talk about protecting the business and protecting, when you use that kind of language or you adopt some element of that into the work you're trying to get. Certainly, what I do for my capex is that we put in is I put that this is what the average price of a claim would be. We wanted a new rig for one part of our machine that was. It was using a powder that had silica in. So I said, well, the average silica claim would be this much. Exposure would potentially be this much on a worst case scenario. Suddenly, when you start putting them in and factoring them into the case for it, the ROI for it wasn't necessarily very good. But when I factored in the health and safety concerns, some environmental concerns, and suddenly we put that in front of the board, they go, oh, it's no brainer that, we'll buy that, and that's just protecting the business. Well, they're using that language, sometimes it can get you what you want, even though it's not necessarily, you'd think in an ideal world you shouldn't have to use that type of language, but when you start thinking in terms of the numbers behind that and protecting the business, it does get a lot of buy-in at times, and it can get it builds that leadership capital with them. It has done for me anyway.
I think that's a really important point. You're using the language of the board then to create your convincing conversation, aren't you? And I think that is really powerful. It's just the challenge I've had is getting on the ground she teams to realise that that's a part of our function just as much as anything else, and actually it can help us lead to the people improvements that we want to make if we start thinking that way.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to let them make mistakes there, because you learn that, I think, as well. So sometimes maybe let them make the mistake first, or in a safe environment kind of thing. So if you've got a company that allows you to make a mistake, let them do it, and then suddenly say, well, what went wrong, and use that coaching method, maybe the grow model, to say, what other options could you use, what other language could you use, almost, and ask them, and then get them to then maybe try that approach. And I think if you get them to start using that a little bit and see, oh, hang on, that had a different response there, and when they start to see that for the role, because you can tell them to do this, everyone knows, you tell someone to do it, they're not going to do it, but you get them use maybe some kind of type of like grow approach or some of that to get them to maybe think about that, and then get them to use that and see how that works. So, well, that actually does work, but it is a journey, and it's doing it we're using it with the right leaders, and maybe giving the leaders a heads up that that's what you're going to do with them as well. But yeah, it can be challenging, but I've certainly been there and found that it's been a journey, but getting them to understand the soft skills and utilize different approaches has certainly helped in the long term, but it is a long-term approach.
No, I think there's lots of people, though, and we've talked about this again about career development. If people start talking the language that the board understand and react to, that can be good for people's careers. And it may help improve the profile of risk management and health and safety. So I think, again, it's definitely something worth considering and working on. I'm going to bring Julie in, I think, now, because she wanted just to say a few words on IIRSM, but Julie, you might also want to comment on what I think has been a fantastic sort of conversation, and maybe what we want to do with some of the content that's actually come out, and we've had quite a few ideas on that. So Julie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, apologies. I'm having terrible internet issues. So I've heard most of what you've said, and it's been a really interesting to be here to listen to it. So I didn't catch it all. But touching on the IIRSM updates, just a few key things I wanted to let you know about. So you may have read in the recent update that we're launching the Ambassadors Network that Karen, who's here with us today, will be chairing. So in the run-up to the 50th anniversary, the ambassadors will be actively supporting the work of the Institute and providing their expertise to help us achieve our strategic vision and mission. Karen, is there anything you'd like to say about your new role?
Yeah, I think what is really interesting, and it echoes what I've heard today, really. I think the opportunity of the Ambassadors Network is to amplify the voice of the IIRSM and do so in a way that reflects a lot of diverse thinking. So the Ambassador Network is going to have a diversity of voices, different geographies, different generational inputs, different different voices from different areas of risk, different parts of the world. So we're looking, the more diverse a network you have, the better the overall output. So in terms of the objectives you painted there, one, amplifying the voice, and also bringing expertise from lots of different perspectives. So not just different risk expertise, but different perspective from people that might see things differently because they're of a different generation or a different geography. So it's really exciting. And Peter Thomas, who's actually an expert in technology for health and safety, also brings a really different voice. So already with him as a deputy chair and myself, we're very complementary in terms of coming at things from different angles. So we're hoping when we announce the Ambassador Network, it's going to be real diversity of thinking, which reflects what the IIRSM are looking to achieve as well.
Great, thank you for that, Karen. Any questions for Karen on the Ambassadors Network? No, fantastic. Next point is we've appointed 3 new trustees to council, which is great. So we've got John Perez, Jonathan Binley, and Anna Kane, which is great to strengthen the council team. And I think Fiona might have mentioned earlier that we've got our 50th anniversary next year. So watch out for lots of offers and opportunities to take part. One of which is we're running an offer at the moment for existing members to upgrade your membership. You won't have to pay an upgrade fee. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog howling in the background. So if you're interested in upgrading your membership, that offer's open for September and October. So the code is, I've written the code somewhere. Where did I put it? Upgrade 50. So if you do it online, and just when you go to the payment part, that's when you can put the code in to get the discount. So if you've been thinking about upgrading your membership, that is the time to do it. So that's kind of the update. So I would just like to say I've really enjoyed listening to your conversations today, even though I haven't been able to hear all of it because of my internet issues. And I think that's the beauty of this forum. You might not do something with everything or every idea you might discuss, but having a discussion together, I think, seems to be really useful to you. So I think, there is the activity part and the project part, but I think there's also sharing experiences, and I've really enjoyed being a part of that today. So thank you.
So we're probably on to any other business. Has anybody got anything else they want to add? Anything else that, because this, I think, Julie, is going to be the last session of the year, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is there anything else that anybody wants to add? And what we'll obviously try and do is take the recording of this and actually do something with it, because it's been such a fruitful conversation, and see how we can take that and develop it into other areas. But any other thoughts, ideas? No? Everybody wants to go and get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or some refreshment now?
Yeah, just to say, I will share the recording on the Emerging Risk Leaders LinkedIn group, and Karen and Fiona, if you'd like to have access to the recording, I can send you a link to it on Zoom.
And then it's about how we do the snapshots from it to actually at least get something out there for other people as well, which I think, Robert, you said you were going to volunteer on doing.
Yeah, whatever you want us to do. I don't have access to the recording, but if you need us to kind of go through anything, or you want us, if whoever does wants to go through it and anything like that, then I'm happy to do that. And yeah, just drop us an email. We can go through any content, or again, if you want to do that, or yeah, even if we make an article on it, we can take something from today. And I don't know, it's whatever you kind of think's best, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Well, I think if there's no other questions, then I'd like to say thank you to everybody for your contribution today, and also the contribution throughout the year. I get the feeling it's starting to gather momentum, and there's a lot we can actually do from this group. So if you need any support from me on anything, particularly the people risks, let me know. But hopefully you will all start moving some of this forward. And I know Julie will pop things in. Karen will actually be nagging us, and you know, also you know, from Fiona's point of view as well. I should have said, I keep getting Karen and Fiona the wrong way around. I'm not doing very well with names today, but I've not had sleep for 3 nights, so it's sorry about that, because I called a few people there. But so yeah, Fiona will be nagging us, and Karen, I think with the work that you're doing on the ambassador will be fantastic. I think there will be a lot of stuff that comes out of that. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody, and declare that the meeting is now closed.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.